Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
Today's guest is Dr. Anna Cabeca, a repeat guest for us. Dr. Cabeca is one of our go-to resources for women's hormone health, and we had a lot of fun talking with her in this conversation. Check out Dr. Anna's new book, MenuPause, just released, a totally genius volume that is part cookbook and part rotating nutritional protocol so that you can support your ever-changing female hormones with a revolving roster of foods. You can learn all about it at drannacabeca.com. And if you order now, you'll receive 7 awesome bonus gifts. Check it out. Our show's sponsor is Primal Health Coach Institute, an NBHWC-approved health coaching school. This means that our graduates can qualify to sit for the national board exam to become a board-certified health coach. You can learn more about our Master Coach certification track at primalhealthcoach.com/master coach. While you're on our website, navigate to primalhealthcoach.com/primal pro and learn all about the Done For You 12-week app-based health coaching program we've put together so that certified health coaches can hit the ground running with an effective and transformational health coaching program for their clients right out of the gate. Because we know that developing program materials and sourcing a client management solution are 2 of the most daunting, show-stopping hurdles that get in the way of new coaches getting started, and we want you to get started. So we made Primal Pro for you. Check it out at primalhealthcoach.com/Primal Pro. As you're listening to the show, make sure to screen grab your podcast player and tag us on Instagram at Health Coach Radio. And as always, the show notes for this episode and all previous episodes of our podcast can be found at primalhealthcoach.com/radio. We hope you have as much fun learning from Dr. Cabeca as we always do. Let's get this show started. Please welcome Dr. Anna Cabeca.
Dr. Anna, welcome back to the show. We are super excited to talk to you again and hear what's new. How are you?
I am so happy to be here with you. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for gracing us again with all your expertise. So, Erin and I, certainly, we were reminiscing before we clicked record about our last conversation, but so let's refresh our listeners' memory about who you are. Can you give us a little background story?
Oh, yeah. So I'm a board certified OBGYN and I trained at Emory University in Atlanta. And I went to an osteopathic medical school for studying medicine way back 1991 is when I started medical school. So I've been in medicine for over 30 years now. And it just blows my mind. And one of the things that I've learned as an OBGYN is to study our hormones. And in my own experience, like my doctor's bag was empty, and that's where I kind of fell into an early menopause and infertility diagnoses and all of that at age 39. And that really changed my life. And it took me on a journey around the world. And as a result of what I learned from Eastern medicines and traditions, and also some of the world's leading scientists, I incorporated that into my life and reversed early menopause and became pregnant at 41 naturally with my miracle child, the child I was told I would never be able to have, Ava Marie. And so now I'm 55 with a 14-year-old doing teenage years and post-menopause. So I was really able to understand like the diagnoses we give come with a very heavy weight and are probably, overstated and should not be given as a finite type of determination for someone, a label, let's say. And removing those labels has now been the greatest joy of my life for me and my patients and my mission. So,
Wow. Removing the labels. What do you mean by that?
So you can say someone has diabetes or you have early menopause or you're diagnosed with infertility. So those are like death sentences. I mean, that can sound like a death sentence. You have cancer. where really, well, let's get to the underlying reason why you're manifesting in this way. And so then if we look at, okay, well, what's causing, for me, what's causing this early menopause? What's causing this infertility? And for me, it was trauma, stress, acute stress, grief, and then, cycle after cycle of pushing my ovaries to their limit with the highest doses of injectable meds. So all of that had a toll, right? Certainly. And diabetes, is it the warrior genes that we're designed to have and the lifestyle that's working against them? And if we address those issues, so type 2 diabetes, not so much type 1, but if we can address those underlying issues causing diabetes, and and reverse that. I've seen diabetes reversed and improved tremendously in patients in their 70s. And so we have tremendous power over the manifestation of the underlying conditions that are driving these consequences. So those labels, and a PCOS, for instance, what does that tell a woman about herself if she has this labeled PCOS? I mean, that's terrible label. And what it says, you've got warrior genes. You're designed to be an athlete, to be a leader, to be a champion, to take charge, to create legacies. That's what those genes mean, not fat acne genes, fat acne and fertile genes. I mean, seriously, I mean, that's what I've worked with young girls that have given labels like this, and that's what they think about themselves. They're like, oh no, girl, you've got Mulan, Pocahontas, Amazonian warrior, Wonder Woman genes. I mean, that's what you've got. Lucky you, lucky me. I can live in the Amazon, or I can live in the desert for 6 months with no food and water, and I'll be fine. I've got those genes.
I'm interested in these warrior genes, but what I'm hearing you say, just to kind of close the loop on this, this labels thing, is it's so patients going to the doctor are given the disease state diagnosis. Maybe instead they should be given, so you were saying root cause or like symptoms of, something like that, a little bit more, maybe more actionable. Like, here's what showed up on a blood test or a Dutch test or whatever. Here's where you're at, rather than just leaping to delivering the name of the disease state, because that is disempowering to people in a way. Like, oh, I've got this now, or this is who I am now. This is now my identity. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Exactly. Good point. And that's empowering, right? That's empowering. Okay, well, I have these things and these things are modifiable if I do this, versus, well, here's your diagnosis, here's your prescription. And there's never a discussion of the underlying issues that are causing that diagnosis. And we're way advanced. We have, ability to look at your genetics, ability to look at endocrine disruptors, look at your hormones. We've come a long way. There's not an excuse. Now, traditional medicines, have looked at these underlying physiologic. If we look at Ayurveda, when I traveled, I learned more Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and different types. So we look at, well, what's your constitution? How do we balance your constitution versus, oh, well, let's just label you. And
it's so common. I hear clients literally, I am diabetic, right? Versus I happen to have diabetes, right? Or I'm obese instead of I happen to have a little extra weight, right? So it's literally a name. It changes how you view yourself, in terms of just, and the way I see it affect people's behavior. That's the biggest difference, right? Instead of, this is what's causing so here I have this diagnosis. This is what we believe is causing the problem. So this is what we do about it. I'm diabetic. This is what diabetics do.
And it's so true. And it goes into these labels, right? Like, how do we feel about ourselves when we're given this, or we're giving up we're resigning to this destiny that we have. Like, for example, I had a patient come into my office and she goes, Dr. Anna, I'm 42 years old now, and my, hysterectomy runs in my family. I think I'm due for one. I'm like, it does not run in your family. It is not a genetic predisposition, but the underlying physiologic effects that could result in hysterectomy, but it's a mentality.
Yeah.
And the same is true with menopause in a very negative way. And again, all these terms like these ICD-10 or whatever, ICD-11, whatever we're on now, coding terms. I mean, there's just a bunch of coding terms to help your insurance companies label you, guide you, and adjust your premiums with.
Mhm.
So, then we have menopause. So what does that tell a woman about herself? Like, okay, well, you're in menopause and your doctor's like, well, that's just normal. You're getting older. I'm like, menopause is natural and mandatory. Every one of us will go through it as a woman, but suffering is optional. And what we're talking about, Laura and Aaron, it's that taking away the disempowering diagnosis and empowering the individual to transform and shine and take this opportunity to be even better. Why not?
Yeah.
Okay. Love it. Because I feel like, given that I'm a woman in her mid to late 40s, and so my clients therefore are in that age range too, it something about menopause is the ultimate, well, I guess this is it for me paradigm. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one fights back against menopause. Like, it's like, well,
We have to
that's it.
disrupt menopause. Time to
Yeah.
disrupt it, right?
Yeah.
Like we need a disruption. And perimenopause, like women are left to suffer. Well, you're too young for menopause. Look, this perimenopause, that's the symptoms.
Mhm.
It's the physiology. You don't have to, like within 2 weeks, we can erase those symptoms. We
Really?
can balance your hormones. We have to, again, addressing the underlying issues. And that was it for me, knowing everything I know. And I'm a hormone expert. So when I went through my second menopause at 48, that downward spiral, the brain fog, the anxiety, the mood swings, I mean, it was crazy. And I was a single mom taking care of a teenager, a middle schooler, and a wee one in elementary school at that time. And my ex-husband had a traumatic brain injury and was in a coma. I mean, I just can remember all of that stuff. And, and it's that downward spiral to the depths of despair, and the weight gain without doing anything different was the straw that broke this camel's back, right? And it was like, okay. And that took me on this journey into the keto green way. And thank God, because it's been an empowering journey. Now I'm 55 and definitely postmenopausal now by a couple months for sure. The terminology is terrible. And so, and empowered, like, oh, can I even have better sex? Can I even, write can a New York Times bestseller? Can I, what can I do now? Like, what's the option? Like what, and then redefining what is now, I can't even say the word grandma, Gigi, Teta, Avo, I'm kind of finding these other names for it myself, for my, new grandbaby that's in this world. Like, what does redefining what this third generation person looks like? Because I didn't know my grandparents. My mom was only alive for a year of her first granddaughter. So to me, grandparents are aged, old, and dead.
Right.
So having to redefine that. So how do you redefine what menopause looks like to you?
Mm-hmm.
How do you redefine this transition, this transformation? We have to get a new image in our own mind that's inspiring, enlightening, Sophia Loren-ish, right?
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting in just the last couple hundred years how communities view the elderly. I'm saying that in air quotes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you take a look at traditional cultures, they revere their elders as being knowledgeable and full of wisdom. And these women aren't put out to pasture just because they're not bearing children anymore. They come to, and they're now kind of revered for the advice and the value and the support that they can provide younger generations. And I kind of feel as though that's really been disrupted in kind of the way our communities are built today. We were interviewing it, and I don't remember who it was, but it was a guest who was talking about how she really felt women in her age, I'm 50, I'm going to turn 51 in a couple of weeks. And I guess technically I could still have a kid if I wanted to. I'm still bleeding, right? Things are wacky, but it's still there. And I don't feel old by any stretch of the imagination. But I talk to women who they'll say things like, well, when we talk about their overall health picture, as a health coach, well, I have high cholesterol and hypertension, but that's normal for people my age. That's the kind of stuff I hear. I'm like, just because something's common doesn't mean it's normal.
Right. Or because it's Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Because it's normal, it's not optimal. I mean, it's sad because our society is going over half the women over 50 now will be on 3 prescription medications, and they're likely antidepressants, anti-inflammatories, and antacids. Well, that's a setup for cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. So we have to recognize that none of the underlying conditions are addressed in that situation. And Laura, you're soaring, you're gracing through this time period because you've got the concepts, the lifestyle, right? The lifestyle, the knowledge, the mindset. And that's the gifting. Sometimes those are the nutrition and diet are two hardest things to change in someone's life. But what I'm finding is even harder is that mindset, that acceptance. And I don't want to say victim mindset, because it's really almost a disempowered, like I've given up on myself. Like I can't do this another diet again. And now I'm over the point where they're just not going to work anymore. Or, this is what it's supposed to look. I'm going to get my hair cut short and do whatever. Right. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. No.
Well,
so.
Yeah, I actually think that victim is an appropriate word, but if we can define it's programming. We've been programmed to believe that we're a victim to menopause. Do you know what I mean? Like that's it, kind of. So there's a big deprogramming involved. And that's what I was saying earlier. It's like, it seems to be the one health condition that we've decided we have no control over.
Right.
Like culturally.
Yep. Yep. And I think this is where, again, the media plays a really big role, and the marketing, like put an image of grandma in your mind. And I actually saw a meme about this, gray hair, big nose, big belly, rocking in a chair this morning. I'm like, that's not funny. That is not funny. That is not my reality. Where's the first class private jet?
That's right.
and the sexy companion. I'm just curious. That's my grandma life. That's it. So like we have to redefine our mental space around this, and that's the longevity. What do I want as an adult, as a 90-year-old? I want to be celebrating, many years of marriage with the love of my life and the family we love around us, healthy relationships, and energy to be dancing all night.
Oh my
that
gosh.
sounds amazing.
I would love to see more practitioners like you. And this is where health coaches can step in this realm. This is absolutely right in our wheelhouse to work on the concept of self-empowerment and standing up for who it is you want to be. That, yes, okay, so my opportunity now to contribute offspring to the community is I've had my time. I'm passing the mantle to somebody younger, but I've raised, in my case, 4 kids, in your case, 4 kids plus a stepchild. There's so much that that you bring to the table, and we need to stand firm in our roles here as important aspects of society. And the only way that we can really do that, to really impart this wisdom, is to be strong and healthy and vocal now. And I wish there were more practitioners that were out there telling patients it doesn't have to be the way you think it does.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that shift in empowerment, I was just thinking too, when it comes to labels, like we're, stepmom, I'm a stepmom. In French, they use the word belle-mère, beautiful mother, belle-mère. And for stepdaughter, it's belle-fille, beautiful girl. No. So the terminology we use really can affect us. And so shifting that terminology, relabeling how we see ourselves, the talk that we're doing, we're even subconsciously, the images that we're associating with this, we have to disrupt them. We have to change them, because all of the symptoms, the hot flashes, the mood swings, the weight gain, the hair loss, the brain fog, the memory loss, the urinary leaking, the lack of orgasm or pleasure, or vaginal dryness, all of those symptoms are reversible. All of those symptoms are reversible 100%, with rare exception.
Wow. Okay, I want to dive into one symptom specifically and get your take on it, if you don't mind. And it's because it's the one that my clients seem to present with the most, and I'm not presenting with it as a perimenopausal woman, and so I'm just bewildered. And so I don't know if it's because I've been really emphasizing my my anti-inflammatory nutrition for a long time, or whatever it is, hormone balancing, this and that, but here it is. Let's just set it up. Here it is. It's this lower abdominal area.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the deal. Some people will say, I'm gaining fat in my lower abdomen. I had a client of mine who said, I've got all this fat in my lower belly. And I'm on the phone with this person. I don't actually get visibly see my clients in real life. That's just one of my things. I know what they look like. I don't actually care what they look like. And I said, do me a favor and reach down and grab hold of this abdominal fat. And she reached down and she said, well, I can't really pinch it. It's not like flabby, but it's protruding and it's big. It's almost like it's swollen. So I've heard this symptom. I don't know what it is, but it's this lower belly that protrudes, but it's not always fat. It's something in the uterus or something. Do you have a sense of what that is? That lower belly?
Yeah, I think it can be a few. I think it can be a few things. You want to look at gastrointestinal bloat, right? Large colon issues, small, intestine issues, and what's going on, because, constipation is one of the biggest reasons for estrogen dominance and toxicity and hormone disruption. So is there a piece of that in there? And food sensitivities, there's a rub, right? We can no longer tolerate the chicken salad for lunch. I just have this thing against chicken salad for whatever reason, because it's like that diet lunch. I'm like, stop eating chicken salad. Just like you're going to have a food sensitivity anyway. So, is there something going on there with the food sensitivity, with the colon, with the gut, with the bacteria? So that's one thing too. And is there an inflammatory kind of response going on? Is there, inflammatory within the peritoneum? Is there irritation? Is there something else going on there? And I would really look at, that's when it's always, a detox. I call it the 21-day keto green detox, whatever we got to do to cleanse, cleanse and improve and heal, even a 72-hour gut rest, with bone broth or just with water or with keto green shakes. You can do it a few different ways, can be really restorative, and that will make a difference. But the, lower abdomen, the lost, like the waist loss, like when we're losing our waistline, and we want to get that hourglass back. That's cortisol. That is cortisol. That is cortisol. That is cortisol. And again, with progesterone, our mother hormone, and like I always say, progesterone's the lid to the pressure cooker of our lives. And it starts to decline in this perimenopause state. And it's like taking the lid, sometimes it's like taking the lid off the pressure cooker. And that's where all of these symptoms are coming on. And if you've got stress, that's the biggest drain on your progesterone. So that's where that, you get all the mood swings and everything, but that cortisol drain, further depleting progesterone, is contributing to that loss of your waistline and your belly fat.
Okay, I love this answer. And the reason I love this answer is because anatomically, your lower belly holds up, maybe it's fat, maybe it's your gut, maybe it's your uterus, maybe it's your waist, maybe it's actually your waist or your trunk but women are just programmed to say, I have this lower belly fat that came from menopause. It's like, it could be 100 things, which is great news, Let's start chipping away at it. Let's get your gut reset. Let's see if we can work on managing your stress and maybe whatever, the inflammatory load. That's this nuance, I think, is what women going through menopause and perimenopause have no line of sight on.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm 50, therefore I get fat. That's how it works.
Right. Right.
This client that I was speaking about, she said to me on the phone, sometimes I wake up and these are her words, and I look skinny.
Yeah.
Like I woke up and I said to my husband, look, honey, I look skinny today. And it's like, that's what I'm talking about. If it goes away overnight, it's not fat. It's not something else.
Right.
Yep. That's something too, examining patients like on an exam table and they're complaining. And I'm like, you can palpate, you can do that yourself. You put 2 fingers on and just kind of pound over and you can feel, does it feel like a drum? And I would tell my clients, you're not fat. You've got gastrointestinal. You've got something going on with your gut. We've got to fix this. And within, you can really reverse that, but there's that bloat, right? There's the bloat. And what happens? Well, you get antacid, right? You get laxatives. And that's not never addressing the underlying issue, causing more problems. Get a diuretic. I mean, I remember I did it as a young physician, 50, an old patient, 50 something year old patient would come into my office and they'd have lower extremity edema. I've got, a little bit of high blood pressure. Here are some, let me give you some diuretic medication to help both those symptoms. And I'm so smart, right? Well, hell no, let's fix your gut and you will diurese. I mean, I can get you to diurese that probably 10 pounds of fluid within 3 days. So come on now. So it's a whole different approach than what I was trained.
Yeah. Would you mind, so just for the benefit of our audience, helping people understand what is supposed to happen hormonally as you go through perimenopause to menopause, and then contrast that with where things go so wrong, how just our modern lifestyle and environment is causing additional problems that make this natural process feel horrible and very unnatural.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a really good question because it's so like, what is supposed to happen? What's supposed to happen for us? And the transition of hormones. I mean, we get we get a nice warm up period. The transition of hormonal decline as we get older, reproductive hormone decline as we get older, there's a time frame, so we can adjust on a regular basis. But so the decline of DHEA in our mid to late 20s, progesterone mid to late 30s, and then as a result, estrogen and testosterone decline, because from progesterone, we make DHEA and cortisol down this way. But to make DHEA, cortisol is the life-saving hormone, so that we're going to sacrifice everything to make that cortisol. And then DHEA will convert to estrogen and testosterone and estrogen in that order downstream. And so when you're, as we get older, we're making less estrogen and testosterone. And with that, certain physiologic changes naturally occur. Like there's the concept of gluconeogenesis is estrogen hormone dependent. I really think progesterone's the big player here, but it's estrogen dependent. And for our brain to use glucose, we need estrogen on board. So we're declining, our brain starts starving from glucose. And that's why we shift to ketones, because use of ketones is not hormone dependent. So we're kind of starving our brain for fuel a little bit here in a way, and we're getting hot, like the normal experience if we don't change anything, are hot flashes, weight gain, hunger, mood swings, brain fog. Those are neurologic symptoms, right? This period of neuroendocrine vulnerability that we enter age 35 to 55, neuroendocrine vulnerability is this quick, rapid transition with that decline of progesterone and this shift. And even if we're supplementing, if we're not changing the lifestyle factors that are affecting two of our biggest lifestyle hormones, and that is insulin and cortisol, if we're not shifting, if we're not becoming more insulin sensitive, because we will become more insulin resistant as we age, and cortisol naturally increases as we age. So we've got to actively create insulin sensitivity. We have to actively manage cortisol and, of course, optimize the most powerful hormone in our body, which counteracts the effects of cortisol, and that's oxytocin. So, optimize this love and bonding hormone through physiologic acts and mind processes and love. And those are things that we can do that empower, some of the most negative genes that we have, that will work against some of the most negative genetics.
I find it so fascinating. And I feel like this relationship between the female reproductive hormones and the metabolic hormones like insulin, cortisol. I had no idea that gluconeogenesis was like an estrogen driven or possibly progesterone driven process. But dropping oxytocin, like you did at the end there, that was an aha for me. Because think about it, like, what is a woman's role through our reproductive part of our life? It's to grow, nurture, love, and care for offspring. And it's like, once we're kind of out of that phase of life, feasibly our oxytocin levels, I don't know, drop because it's not necessary anymore, but we can do things to bring that back up. Like that's a brain chemical we can actually influence by our lifestyle inputs.
Absolutely.
And it brings us back to almost what it is to be a woman, which is to be the nurturer, the loving, caring, of the species.
and to feel that, right? It's like at the end of the day, I ask the question, where did I see love today? Where was I loving? It's to feel where did I feel love? So that receipt, that giving and receiving, and for women, it's often hard to receive. We constantly give. So receiving is important. And now this second stage, the second spring, the Japanese call this time, the second spring of our lives. So in the second spring of our lives, how do we generate oxytocin? We like a lot of time, the wisdom, the meditation, the prayer, right? That ecstatic prayer to really connect with God, our higher power. And that's oxytocin, to nurture the next generation, to support them, to feed in our wisdom into others. That giving philanthropy is an oxytocin increasing benefit, right? That's a biblical, give and you will receive. I mean, it is oxytocin boomerang effect.
No, I love that. So in terms of kind of naturally what is supposed to happen, I would imagine that under a normal, traditional, ancestral approach to this, we would have been spending far more time in nature. We would have been living together with family and young ones that we can, I don't know about you, but as a kind of a natural caregiver, I get a tremendous amount of pleasure and just joy from helping somebody. And it doesn't have to be kids. It can just be my neighbors, and helping out kind of where we can. But when from an ancestral point of view, this is kind of how we all survived, right? By leveraging each other's wisdom and being there to support each other. So that in other times might have been a lot more natural and part of our everyday environment, where now we're far more isolated, particularly the last 2 years or so, right? Yeah. So there's, to Erin's point, there's a lot that we can do in terms of choices and how we interact with others to increase that sense of oxytocin. But then also from a diet and movement perspective, we weren't sitting around binge watching Netflix, right? Maybe we were taking a walk. Perhaps we were gathering berries or whatever. But from a food perspective, we were eating nutrient-dense, fresh, whole foods, likely not full of a bunch of processed carbohydrate, right? Mm-hmm. I would love your perspective from it. So you talk about this concept of keto green, and you've just came out with a new book called MenuPause, and I'm sure addresses the whole nutritional point of view of this. But, I see this with women all the time who are like, I can't eat what I used to eat. And the same is true of me. And what's interesting is when I first lost the early baby weight with my first 2 kids, I did it on a very high fat ketogenic diet. Lost it all, but I can't eat all that fat anymore as I've gotten older. I can't. I've got to kick up the protein, and I've got to pull down some of that fat,
Please tell me you've got lots of greens in there too.
I do. I did. I mean, I eat a big ass salad every day for lunch, and I include some sort of vegetable probably at most meals, even breakfast a lot of times. So anyway, I would love your perspective from a nutritional point of view. How can we best emulate and support the body, what's happening naturally? How can we work with what's happening naturally to stay healthy and active and energy and all of that?
And I love it, because we do want to work with what's happening naturally. We want to work with Mother Nature. I always say, you can't beat Mother Nature. You got to work with her, and with honor and respect and all of that. And that comes to the temple, the cathedral of our own spirits, right? Mm-hmm. We have to work with this cathedral of our own spirits and optimize where we can, right? And I love that, because that's, back to the oxytocin, what does this next half of our life look like? How we're giving into others and feeding into others. And it comes to how we perceive ourselves. And Dr. Martinez, in his work on psychoneuroimmunology, talks about one of the characteristics of centenarians, people who have lived to be over 100, is a healthy narcissism. Like, of course they're, my neighbors love me. I love my neighbors. It's like, of course they do, right? Of course they want to come see me, versus no one wants to come see me. Isolating and over the traditions to, I will answer your question, Laura, but I'm thinking like over traditions, and from my work around the world, and in my new book, MenuPause, I talk about menopause around the world. That from my experience, we're as America, we're a young country. We're a couple hundred years old, right? We're a young country, pretty much. And so like look at some of the traditional societies. What have they done? They have multi-generational households,
Mhm.
right? That's part of it. You're not left out. You're not put in a nursing home, right? And that's fear driven too. It's like, well, who's taking care of me? What do I have set up? What's the rest of my life? Well, I will die with my family, till my last breath. That's a sense of security and safety too. And we celebrate everything, celebrate birthdays, take a week to celebrate a wedding. Like, we're
Mhm.
not going to forget you because we love you. I don't care if it's your 100th birthday or, we're our 55th, 56th birthday coming up. We love you, right? We're celebrating you, and allow yourself to be celebrated versus dismissing it.
Mhm.
Allow yourself that healthy narcissism, and that's powerful. Like, that's okay. That's good. That's a good sign. That's a
Yeah.
good sign. And so now I forgot your question, Laura.
Like, how do we, from the standpoint of, in addition to these lifestyle inputs, from the standpoint of being able to honor and celebrate and work with what's happening with our bodies hormonally, how do we address that from a nutritional point of view? And maybe from a movement kind of point of view, as far as keeping the body moving and supple and high rates
Oh
of
yeah.
energy and all that.
Well, one thing that I've learned, especially in this keto green lifestyle that I've been doing now since 2015, when I discovered it for myself and brought it to my patients and then brought it online, and in my books, is working with this keto green lifestyle. So it's with intermittent fasting. It's healthy ketogenic food. I mean, healthy fats, right? Our avocados, our salmon, our olive oil, our, MCT oil and nuts and seeds and things like that, that we can incorporate into our diet, high quality protein that we're paying attention to, grass fed, organic, free range, all of those good things. And more conscious of like what we ate. That's critically important too. And the greens, the fiber, the importance of diversity for our gut. So I've been working in this with intermittent fasting, no more snacking. Like, if I hear anyone say menopause diet, 3 meals, 3 snacks, I'm like,
Oh gosh.
you're an idiot. So I'm going to have to be very bold right now and tell them that. But I've read, like, in New York Times, I mean, seriously, like, that's a menopause diet? You got to be kidding me. So, so this working with lifestyle and diet and the key foods. My first book was The Hormone Fix. And then I went to Keto Green 16. So to make it simple, 16 key foods with fermented foods and really keeping that plan simple. And in menopause, two times a day, eating 2 times a day is plenty. It's plenty. We work up to that, right? We work up to that, but we want to have at least 13 to 16 hours of an intermittent fast. And some days it's 1 meal a day, right? It's an OMAD. Some days you're feasting, and that metabolic flexibility is really important post-menopause as well. During this time, we can't do the same thing every day and expect to continue to get good results. And so with MenuPause and working with clients online, such a great title. MenuPause, my editor came up with that title. And so, this concept is, I created 5 pauses in our plan. So Keto Green Extreme Plan is the Keto Green, but an autoimmune moderation. So no nightshades, no nuts, seeds, no peppers, no, uh, you know, eggplant, tomatoes. And it makes me cry to do that diet, but I do really well on it. But, it's 6 days. So each plan for 2 72-hour GI mucosal tract turnovers, 72 hours for the mucosal lining to regenerate. So within, when we do anything 3-4 day, it's the hardest.
Yeah.
But day 5, day 6, you've got good, clean, healthy mucosa without the antagonist that may have been creating that belly bloat, putting you in storage mode, giving you headaches, right? And aches and pains in your joints. You've cleared that in that shortest time possible. So there's a plant-based plan, because sometimes we have to pause the meat and restore gut microbial diversity for a healthy estrobolome, right? Estrogen detoxification and serotonin production happens in the gut. That happens in the gut. So moodiness. So I incorporated a plant-based plan, and then I have a carnivore plan, because sometimes your digestive enzymes are so affected that you can't digest the plant foods that you need to digest. And we're going to heal you from that. Like, I want to heal you from that. I don't want you to have, like, it makes me cry when I have patients come to me and they can eat only 3 foods.
Yeah.
It's just impossible to live that way. We have to heal why your body's only tolerating this, and address the, maybe it's addressing parasites, viruses, yeast, bacteria, what's going on, cell membrane breakdown. We can restore that because our regenerating gut mucosal lining every 72 hours. Our body is constantly renewing and restoring itself. Given the proper nourishment, will do that really well. And then I have a cleanse plan because, if you're doing them in order, you'll go right from carnivore and high ketosis into a beautiful cleanse that will be a liver gallbladder flush to help us cleanse the gallbladder so we can digest healthy fats again even better, so we can function with, just feel better. But of course, the extra side effects that I really like are clear skin, clear eyes, good strong hair, all that important self-narcissistic stuff that we should enjoy. And then I have a carb up plan because you and I both know sometimes we're so restricted for so long that it's not never my case, but in some of my patients' cases, I have to add back some healthy carbs into their diet. So we do a carb up plan, and I've had clients lose weight during the carb up plan. It doesn't happen to me, but it's just what feeded them. And then they slept better. And it's very interesting to see what do we need now? And which, for some clients, which plan should I do next? So I do have a MenuPause quiz, and each of the chapters start with, this may be for you but I really do want to go through it in community with clients to see how, go through each of the plans and just explore, where do I feel best? And that's good for now, but let's not be afraid to change up. Let's not get stuck in the keto camp, in the paleo camp, in the vegan camp, in the carnivore camp. We can't get stuck. Let's mix it up. Variety.
I love that.
Oh yes, bravo. I am such a staunch advocate for that, because you mentioned metabolic flexibility, which yes to that.
Yes.
And also though, this natural oscillation through almost sometimes you're hungrier, sometimes you're less hungry, sometimes you're craving red meat, sometimes you're craving plants. And folks get so tied up in the fact that, but I'm on this plan, so I can't, I'm fasting, so I can't eat 4 times today, even though I'm hungry 4 times, or I'm keto, so I can't eat plant or whatever. And I'm such a staunch advocate for folks just tapping into what is felt. But I also think the human body is meant to oscillate through different eating paradigms, different fuels, different inputs. We're not meant, you just finish it up by saying, don't get stuck. People get stuck in their one camp and they just double down on it. And I don't believe, just as just my own personal, anecdotal just belief, that I don't believe that's meant to be the human sort of biological experience. Yeah. At all.
Absolutely right. There are seasons for a reason, right, Erin? I mean, we have been designed to eat seasonally. There are seasons for a reason. I think that remembering that, and we're also each one bio-individuals. We are bio-individuals, and also the gut microbiome, a trillion of organisms that have to be nourished, have to be challenged, right? Let's give them some lectins today. Okay. Let's do that. And let's challenge you and see how you do. I'm Middle Eastern. So half Middle Eastern. So chickpeas, hummus, baba ganoush. I've got my nightshades, got my lectins. I'm all good.
You're doubling down on your hormesis.
I am totally.
But one example that I'll use, and I don't have any, knowledge of this, and you do, so you can throw in your actual knowledge. But every now and then my female clients who are still, menstruating will tell me that they were really hungry one day. It just says one day of the month where I can't stop eating. And it's great, do it. Your body's asking for it for some reason on that day of your cycle. It's asking you for more. Why don't we just trust that and go for it? But people are so worried they have to micromanage and keep themselves oh, I'm doing OMAD. I'm fasting for 18 hours. And, again, it's just, we're super disconnected from these natural oscillations and undulations in our hunger, in our body's call for different nutrients. And this feels really beautiful because it's a coming back to the body. And when I say coming back to the body, there's actually not a lot of truth in that, because most women have been dieting their whole lives and have never been actually
Intuitive.
intuitively connected to their bodies in any way.
Mhm.
So it's coming back to the body for the first time. We get to do this as we cruise into menopause is kind of cool. It's kind of like really taking the power back maybe for the first time ever.
I think that's so beautiful and so well said, because oftentimes, sometimes we don't even know how we feel.
Yeah.
We've so like had to exist and to perform and to please that we don't even know, like, really, how am I feeling? And is this hunger, or is this thirst? Is
Right.
this, what's this brain fog today from? Or, where did this emotional outburst come from? What's going on? Like, what am I really feeling? What's the underlying, where, to ask ourselves, where is this coming from? To get curious. And now it's an empowerment stage of our life to get really curious and say, oh gosh, what am I feeling? What will make me happier today? Like, I'm happy already. What will make me even happier today? Like, what can I do to make someone else happy? I'm curious. And I think this stage of life, as we get curious, I mean, this is the entrepreneurial kicking in, right? This is the, like, okay, I am, you're taking that lead that we are designed. We've survived, right? So we have that leadership ability to embrace as we go through this transformation of menopause.
Yeah. We're quick to judge and not so quick to understand sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Ourselves especially, like, oh, it's because I'm old. Look at these wrinkles. I'm like, oh, you mean my laugh lines? You like my smile lines? Oh yeah, I got those.
It's been ingrained. I know. I seem to like these lines right here, or these lines from the having 4 children, I guess. But at the end
Oh
of the
yeah,
day,
the gray hair from the 4 children that I have to, color out. So
they're just kind of part of the journey. What I learned, and thank you for asking my question, answering my question so thoroughly. One of the things I learned was the fact that your mucosal lining turns over every 32 hours. And I think what an empowering little bit of information that you can literally sort of reshape and sort of rebuild a healthy gut in a relatively short period of time.
yes.
I had no idea.
Yes.
And so MenuPause in your book, is that what those stages are designed to do, to sort of kind of create an environment that allows different aspects of the mucosal lining to come forward? And could you
It's
speak to that a little
part
bit?
of the healing, removing things that could be interfering with appropriate healing. Yes. And adding things back that could support healing, like the whole plant-based plan. That could be very supportive, especially if we've been keto for a long time. That can be incredibly supportive. And again, eliminating constipation, one of the most significant. And to be clear, because that was one of my questions. It's always a question on my intake forms. As a physician, like, are you constipated? My patients would say no. And I would do their exam, Erin, and their belly would be bloated. And I'm feeling like, okay. I'm like, well, how often are you having bowel movements? And like, oh, once or twice a week. I'm like, you said you're not constipated. Because I've been that way all my life. I'm like, you've been constipated all your life. No wonder, right? So to be clear, you have to have 1 to 2 bowel movements a day. Otherwise you are constipated. So, and that's a really big issue. And that's where the diversity and healing the gut lining now, but remember, we can eat the most nutritious, balanced, amazing diet, and this is where the alkalinity part of my programs come in, the green part, that we can be eating the best diet, but still be breaking our cells down with cortisol, chronic everyday stress, that post-traumatic stress, that, and especially when we take the lid off progesterone, it is the lid off the pressure cooker, that progesterone's declining, then, we're really eroding that lining. Cortisol is the key that unlocks the gate to those leaky membranes, You're breaking through a nice, healthy boundary. And cortisol is that key. We know with gluten sensitivity, we see zonulin in those cell membranes, right? We see zonulin in the walls. So, like, what's the key? Key is cortisol. The key is cortisol. So what's the antidote? Oxytocin, the most powerful hormone in our body. And I look at it this way. If we look at the hierarchy. Oxytocin is that God hormone, that benevolent hormone. It's the crowning master hormone. It's the queen of us, oxytocin. And then if you were look at it at a university setting, that's the dean of the university. And cortisol and insulin are your professors, right? And if they're great, if they're well behaved, if they've got a great leadership, then that trickles down. The student body is those hundreds of hormones we have, each with its own, like the students in a student body. Each one has its own designation, its own path. But under good leadership, we've got law and order. But when insulin and cortisol are going crazy, there's mass chaos among the student body, riots and I don't know, burning flags. I don't know what's happening, but it's terrible, right? So that's the hormones in our body. So the same is true. So if we master, and I always go to, I want to do the least amount of effort to get the best results. That's just my innate laziness. So I want to master oxytocin, right? I want to master oxytocin. That will support insulin and cortisol. And I want to master insulin to become as insulin sensitive as I can. I had diabetes. I lost both my parents to diabetes. My mom never got to be a grandma more than a year. And so, this is empowering information. So I can master, those are lifestyle hormones. I've got control over those. I don't care what my genes, I've got those genes, diabetes genes, heart disease genes, you name it. I've got them all. And so, but I can master that. And then as a result, it takes more than hormones to fix our hormones, right? It takes more than hormones to fix our hormones. Then the hormonal sterile, body. And I do keto green, and I balance with bioidentical progesterone, my balance cream. I take my adaptogen. You saw me drinking my Mighty Maca Plus supplement. I created these because there weren't answers for me. And yeah, then we can talk about Julva later, but that's the key, right? That's the secret ingredient. So but I, want to support women naturally through menopause so that we have this greater state, and that we have empowered this master hormone oxytocin. And it can feel like impossible, like I've been to those deep depths of despair and death where I wanted to die every day. I'm telling you, it's essential. Empower your physiology. If physiology affects behavior, and behavior affects physiology. So we have to come at it both ways.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Amen.
Oh my gosh. Yes. We say that all the time. We talk about that in our school. It's like we health coaches are behavior change agents, right? It's easier to change your behavior when your biochemistry is working appropriately.
Exactly. Willpower is physiologic. Yes.
I'm obsessed with oxytocin all of a sudden.
Erin, I was totally shopping molecular necklaces for oxytocin the other day.
They have one. Because I wear the melatonin molecule around my neck. But oxytocin is my favorite. One question I have for you though is, I was going back to this idea of, how important nutrition is to get all the, these professors of the hormonal school dialed in so that your menopause experience can be easier. So I feel like I dialed this in for myself in my early 30s, which is why I'm having a really fine time as I go through perimenopause. I got like nothing going on. Is it too late? Do you know what I mean? Like if women are in perimenopause or in menopause, can they claw this back? Well, they can, because you did it after
Absolutely.
menopause.
And well post menopause, you can. I have clients in their 70s and 80s. So well post these, if it works for a woman in the transition of her life, let me tell you, it works for guys, it works for teens, it works for everyone. And the sooner an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, the sooner that we can implement these changes and change these lifestyle patterns of behavior, the better it will be. Now, the menopause should be that easy, it should be an easy transition. We're not going to say that we're going to be, even with an easy transition, that we're not going to be completely symptom free, but listen to what the symptoms are telling us. If we're having that night sweat in the middle of the night, we're getting up to use the bathroom, if we're having vaginal, what are the symptoms telling us, and what's the antidote? What can we do to address those symptoms? And it's communication with our body. So I love this. And I think that where you're so ahead, Erin, is that concept that, okay, I've got this control. These are disciplines and practices that do affect physiology. And, that's, we need more of you, right? We need more of you and Laura out there. And I'm glad that you guys are doing this coaching, and you have this, platform, because that's the walk walking the talk, the living the example. And through this transition, then when we're through, like what additional natural support, where do we need that additional help and support, and not to be afraid, because menopause is natural. I feel like so many times I hear from women, oh yeah, well, my doctor said vaginal dryness is normal, but here's some estrogen. I'm like, estrogen's touching the surface. It's not addressing underlying tissues. And we have to address that stuff. Like, don't live with it because it's natural, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I've seen it, and we don't talk about it so much within our community, but I see it a lot in the sort of diet culture and diet gurus that I see that talk about the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting for women, and why it's not good for women as they age, which I don't believe to be true, but I've seen others come forward talking about how it slows down the thyroid, what have you. So can you please debunk this for
Dr.
us?
Anna, Dr. Anna's your face is
The look on your face is like, wait, what? Yeah, it's out there. That shit's floating around out there.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of particularly strength training coaches that just like worship carbohydrates. And I don't mean necessarily the healthy carbohydrates. I mean like
pasta. Oh, even worse.
Like junk, that it's a macros based thing, and we have to have your macros dialed in. And they'll, a lot of women, here's their argument is they have a lot of women that come to them that have been dieting and on the ketogenic diet for so long. And that's the reason they've run into problems, and that they're miraculously fixed with the 6 meals a day and all these carbohydrates. Many of them have changed their tune on the quality these days.
Yeah.
I think they've gotten smart about that, but they're still very in this camp about how intermittent fasting and a ketogenic diet are not good for women in menopause, perimenopause. I have found the opposite to be true. But again, in my case, it's just, don't add fat for fat's sake. Don't just continue to add butter. I don't want to do that either. That doesn't work. So I would love for you to debunk that if you don't mind.
Yeah. And don't continue MCT oil. That can have a negative effect on your lining too. So we want to look at, again, let's change things up. Let's look at what's working for us. And I think this is where MenuPause came about. Let's take that that carbohydrate boosting week. Let's see how you do with that. Doesn't mean I'm going to keep you on that or you're going to stay on that, but let's see. You be your judge. How are you feeling? Are you radiating health and energy? And if you're not, that's a problem. And I know, Laura, when I was 42 when I trained for my first sprint triathlon, first and only, but I checked that box, you guys. I'm not the athlete. I like my wine and my books and my couch. So when I trained for that triathlon, I mean, that was the thing. You eat these sugar pills after, and all of that, those gummies, and drinking these goops and these things. And like, okay, I wish I knew then what I know now. I probably, I came in fourth. I could have come in second or first. So, who knows, right? But that was for my age group. Okay. So, but it's a competitive age group. Wouldn't you agree? The 40s are pretty competitive. So it was really it's interesting to reflect back on the carbohydrate load before. And so I think it's that where you have to play with it. We're not all designed the same, and our environment, the environment we're living in, the thoughts we're keeping will affect that. And so this is where I want to say to everyone, challenge your thoughts, try each and every one of these 5 plans, and they're balanced for hormone support and detoxification and energizing and healing. They are balanced in this way with herbs and spices. Food is medicine. Food is information. And so I'm giving that to you. So let's change things up and let's see, check in with yourself. How are you doing? How are you doing now? And I think that's the really big piece. And with the book, we have book bonuses too, that people can get. And on my book page on my website, and one of the bonuses is just that checklist. I want you to check in with yourself for each of the plans. I want to know how you're doing. And so that's an important self-assessment tool.
And too, when I see a lot of these trainers, I from my point of view as a health coach, I don't necessarily see that the ketogenic diet's a problem, or that the intermittent fasting in and of itself is a problem, or even a low-fat diet is a problem. The problem is so many women are just under eating, period. They've been dieting too long. That's the problem. So
And then they're metabolically destroyed. Yeah.
Exactly. And no one diet's really going to work. You've got to get back to eating instead of dieting.
And this is and that's with intermittent fasting. I mean, it is essential. And I say keto green's not just a good idea, menopause and beyond, it's mandatory. But with our athletes and with this, what's really important was eye-opening to me. It's like, it's not just about what we eat, when we eat, who we're eating with, what we ate, right? All of these things factor into how our body is going to receive this information. And so that concept of when we are like a low calorie diet is more destructive than fasting.
Yeah.
That's what you need to tell those snackers. And a low calorie diet decreases your basal metabolic rate more than fasting will. And so when we can fast and be able to eat, we can't calorie restrict and be able to eat. We've now slowed down I mean, it's just survival. And it's a survival pattern that our cells have evolved with. So again, we have to work with Mother Nature, not against her. Intermittent fasting, game changing. We have to get into ketosis to use ketones for fuel for our brain. I don't care if we're supplementing hormones. That's okay. But even better is empowering your body to do what it's designed to do at its best and highest performance level. So for our athletes, and I think this is where, again, that am I building muscle? Am I getting stronger? What's working for me? What do I need to change now? Because I've gotten in this same pattern, right, Erin? Same pattern too long. So I have to change things up and not be afraid to do that. So sometimes I've been so keto or so keto green for so long, and I'm going for this triathlon. I'm going to carb up in order to do this triathlon now. I don't do a sprint triathlon. Don't do a long triathlon. Destructive. But anyway, that's another story. Okay. So, or I'm doing these weight lift. I'm doing whatever it is, this challenge. And so optimizing for that time. But if I speak after I've been carb loaded, I mean, I'm going to forget a lot of what I'm talking about. Right. So I can't do it. I have to go into a presentation in ketosis. And I have to, when I have to make a big decision in my life, do I buy this house in Dallas and do I move from Georgia? I mean, I fast before I make these decisions. I want clarity. I want clarity, and I want I want to have the greatest connection to my creator. And I want to have that sense of, okay, nothing else is clouding my decision. This is totally what has to happen to the best of my ability, right or wrong, be strong about it. And I do that in a fasted state.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talk about how important it is to learn how to eat before you learn how to fast.
Oh, that's great.
Not well-fed fasting can be dangerous. So you've got to learn how to eat first. And then I already heard you say it. We kind of work our way into that sort of a paradigm, which I love.
Do you know how I articulated it to my client recently was this idea of sending safe signals to your body.
Yes.
Right? So yes, we fasted for 18 hours, 20 hours, but then we had this amazing, nourishing meal. Your body was like, great. Body is wired for that. But the body is not wired for these dribs and drabs of meager, pathetic dribbles of low calorie food. That sends a scarcity signal, like something's going on in the environment. This animal is eating rice cakes. What is happening?
100 calorie snack bags.
Yeah.
Can we put a big red X on those? Because that is, that's restrictive.
It is.
I mean, and then what's it telling your mind? You're exactly right.
It tells your body like things are not good right now. Like you got to circle the wagons metabolically and just like, because something weird's going on. So like this whole idea of learning how to eat before you learn how to fast, and learning how to eat is the skill to master. I really love the sound of your book. Like, first of all, yes, very clever name, MenuPause, because there's these pauses that happen. I didn't pick up on that until you explained it. Like we pause this, and now we're going to try this, and we pause this for a bit, and now we move on to this. And there's a menu component. You were showing us some of the pictures before we pressed record. So in addition to like educating people through this protocol, you also have recipes in the book.
Over 125 recipes, gorgeous photography, little breakouts on menopause around the world, the 5 different plans, and a chapter on pausing what no longer serves you.
Ooh.
Love it. Wow. So when does it come out? When can we buy it?
April 12th, available everywhere books are sold, and definitely come back with your receipt number to my website for those extra book bonuses and batch cooking. So if you guys like batch cooking, do it all at a time. Yes. Like 6 days. So we've got those batch cooking guides too.
Gosh, it sounds amazing.
It's fun. It's good. And it's good recipes. And plus from, like I grew up as a foodie. My mom was a baker and also Middle Eastern. So food, like the Middle Eastern foods. And I love them. How do I make, so I give my, twist on a healthy tabbouleh, and I'm not using cauliflower rice in place of the cracked wheat. And, again, parsley is a medicinal food, and it's a natural diuretic, and it's so healing for the body. It's really, everything is easy to make. I'm a single mom with kids, right? And a business to run, and, employees all over the world now. So like I have to make things as simple for me as possible too. And so then my kefta recipe and my, Texas rodeo skillet recipe. Oh my gosh, you guys, like, and it's fun names and little stories with each of the recipes too. So, and they're designed to support, is to support your healing, to support this journey, to support this transition, and to feel satisfied, not deprived.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. So where do people go? Give us the website again and any social media stuff.
Yeah. So dranna.com, DRANNA.com is my website. So you can find me and my books there too. And anywhere books are sold for MenuPause, and at The Girlfriend Doctor on social media, at The Girlfriend Doctor.
Oh, I love it. This was so great. I learned so much, as I did last time too. So thank you so much for being so generous with your time and your knowledge and your passion for this.
My pleasure. Time just flew by. I'm like, can we just keep talking? Yes, I love it. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Got it.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.